The Olam hears me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the middle of learning Hilchos Tzitzis, and we're holding page Mem. So it's Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Chelik Aleph, page Mem, Siman Tes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Alter Rebbe here is, so the Alter Rebbe starts over here. Eze begadim chayavim tzitzis ve'eze p'turim tzitzis. So by tes sifim. Kosev echad, one pasuk says, "V'nasna tzitzis akana p'schil tcheles." You should put tzitzis on a psil tcheles, a string of tcheles on the kanaf on the corner. She'ain tzarech loimer hakanaf. The pasuk did not need to say and repeat over hakanaf. Sharei krai nemer v'asan tzitzis hakanaf v'yudem. The pasuk had already told us earlier that you should make tzitzis on the corners of the begadim. It doesn't need to tell us again that the tzitzis are on the corner. What does the word hakanaf teach us? That the material of the tzitzis should be the same material that the corner, the kanaf, is made of. They should both be the same material. And the matala shel meshi, if you have a talus made out of silk, so the tzitzis shel meshi. The tzitzis, the string should also be silk. That's from one pasuk. Because in another pasuk it says, "Leisilba shatnis semano pishtim yachtov gedilim tasel chal arba." There's a different pasuk which says later on in Chumash Dvarim, in Parshas, I think he say that you should not wear shatnis of wool and linen together. And the pasuk continues right into the next, to the mitzvah tzitzis. Gedilim tasachal arba kamfes. You should wear tzitzis. Mashma, from the fact that the psukim are right next to each other, that the tzitzis nas is me'atzamar pishin dafke. Tzitzis should be made specifically from wool or linen. So how do we put this together? From the other pasuk, hakanov seems to be that whatever material the talus is made out of, that's what the tzitzis can be made out of. Should be made out of. But another pasuk seems to be that tzitzis should be specifically out of only these two materials, samer or pishtim. Ha-ketzad. How do we reconcile this together? Tzitzis shel samer shel pishtim. If you have tzitzis made out of wool or linen, poitim, they exempt bein betal shel samer and pishtim betal shel sharminim. While zen nemer samer pishtim dilim tasalach. If you have wool tzitzis, you can put them on any beged, on a beged of a silk beged, whatever material the beged is made out of, the kanaf, the tzitzis that are tzemer or pishtim will pattern exempt that beged. And when it comes to tzitzis that are made out of other minim, not tzemer pishtim, or tzitzis or shar minim, ein paritin of a talis ha'osim min hatzitzis. Kein tzitzis shal meshi, b'talis shal meshi. B'shal kambus, b'talis shal canvas. When you, let's say silk, will not work. Silk tzitzis will not work on a wool beged. Someone's wearing wool or cotton tzitzis, and he puts on the corn on the kanaf tzitzis made out of silk strings. He's not yoitza. Silk will work on silk. Cotton will work on cotton. However, wool or linen, samar pishtim, will work on any beged, and that's the chiddush of the pasuk. And that's why, by the way, all of our begadim are are all made. All our tzitzis are made out of wool because the wool is the only min that will patter all begadim. People wear cotton. Some wear cotton tzitzis. If they would wear, if the tzitzis would be made out of cotton, it would be good. But it's not made out of cotton. Your only other choice is to make a tzemer or pishtim. Any other material will not exempt that four-corner beged, and you're going to have to put dafke cotton or tzemer or pishtim. Siv beis. Af bishib schil tcheles v'alma b'teiru hu tzemer shetzavua b'seva tcheles. Mikol mokim matin lo yisafilu b'tal shepishtim min ha-toira. Mishakilayim hutra b'tzitzis. Psil techelas, the techelas string, which is the wool, which is dyed with the techelas dye, you're allowed to put that even on a talis, which is made out of pishtim. Even though it's kilayim, it's shatnez, you have your wool and linen together. Wool sits tied onto a beged of pishtim. Because minat Torah, tzitzis, the Torah made it clear by the fact that we put the psukim together, loy silba shatnis, samer pishtim yachtav, gedilim tasalach, that shatnis doesn't apply to tzitzis. You're doing the mitzvah tzitzis, there's no isser of shatnis. However, chachamim asrei betalosh pishtim. Chachamim were concerned, and they said you should not wear tzemer tchelas when you're wearing a talis of pishtim. Gezeira shema yatilu gam kim b'ksus laila. Because maybe you will also put tzitzis on a pajamas, something you wear at night. Nighttime is not a time when you're chayiv in tzitzis. And if you're wearing it at night, it would be a problem. So you should not put chelas, which is wool, on a pishtin beged, even though minat Torah there's no issue. But if you're going to wear it at nighttime, you're going to put it on a ksus laila, at night, when it's you're potter from the mitzvah tzitzis, or the isa say, so then you're going to be chayav mitzvah shatnis, because there's no mitzvah tzitzis to be doicha shatnis. Afilu tzishal pishtim, also batal shal pishtim, zeh shmiyat v'gam kein tchelas. Even tzitzis of pishtim, also, you should not put on a talis of pishtim a gzeira, a further gzeira, that you might put on it tchelas. You might put tchelas on it. Since people are always putting tchelas, that's the mitzvah. If you're going to put tchelas on a pishtim beged, you're going to have this issue. At night, don't even put pishtim on it. A person should not wear a talis made out of pishton because it is potter from tzitzis. Chazal did not allow you to put on a pishton beged tzitzis. You cannot put pishton on it, and you cannot put on wool on it. And because of this problem, you should not make talesim, talis gadol, talis cotton, should not make out of the material of pishtim. This is not a problem for a wool beged, because the tchelas is made out of wool. So wool on wool is not a problem. The problem is when you're putting tchelas on a pishtim beged. B'amed v'anamorim bizman shahaya hatchelas motzi. This whole issue was when tchelas was around. The Rosh points out that this whole issue that Chazal said you should not put tchelas or pishtim on a beged of pishtim is only in times when the tchelas existed. Bezman hazeh kiven she'ein tchelas motzi l'shayich lemigzah shemiyatu tchelas betal shel pishtim. This gezer should not be applicable today, says the Rosh. If you don't have any other talis besides for pishton, you should it could be matter today to put on it tzitzis of pishton. Mutter gamkin levarach alav. You're also allowed to make an abrach on it because there's no concern today for this issue. Oh, here the Alter Rebbe gives an interesting eitzah. If you want to do something b'chol hadayis, if you have a baguette of pishtin and you want to put on it tzitzis, wool tzitzis, no problem. Make the corners out of leather. If the corners are out of leather, it comes out that the wool tzitzis are not touching, are not connected directly with the pishtim. The tzitzis are made out of tzemer, and they're tied onto the leather corner, and they're not touching and not connected with the beged, which is directly with the beged, which is made out of pishtim. There's no problem of shatnez. By the way, interesting enough, today you have many people wearing tchelas. So you could tell that this would be a problem. This could be a problem even today, according to those who hold that they have found the correct tchelas. Now, furthermore, in Siv Gimel, the Alter Rebbe goes further. It is appropriate to be cautious not to put strings made out of pishtim, even in a baguette of other material. There's no problem to put it on. Remember, tzemer or pishtim exempt all begadim, all types. So theoretically, you could take tzitzis, pishton tzitzis, and put them on all begadim, and it's good. However, the worry is you might come and put the pishtim on a wool baguette, and then we're back to our problem when you'll be wearing it at nighttime. It could be an issue because there won't be a mitzvah, and you'll be wearing shatnez. So therefore, best to not put pishtim b'chlal any begadim. If you don't have anything else, you can use it. Now, so basically, the kitzur comes out that a person l'chatchila should not be using any beged made out of pishtim or tzitzis made out of pishtim. I don't think it's common b'chlal this material.
Linen? Pishtin's linen.
Right. I mean, do people wear linen clothing?
All the time, yeah. Very comfortable in the summer.
Uh-huh. Okay. So then it's an issue. But I mean everyone knows not to use it, so no one's making it l'maisa. None of the tzitzis machers or the talis machers are not going to be making anything out of linen.
Right.
Now, so l'maisa b'poyel, no one's using any beged made out of pishtim today, and all tzitzis today that are made are all made out of wool. And wool works with whatever material the beged is made out of. The words it's cotton, it works for cotton. So whatever materials, and I don't know what some of these t-shirt tzitzis or other types of tzitzis are being made out of, the different materials that they're made out of, the wool tzitzis patters in any beged.
Polyester.
Polyester. So the wool tzitzis, it helps. However, if it would not be wool the tzitzis, you would have to use polyester tzitzis because other material, cotton or other material, won't patter a polyester tzitzis. Only the same min. Only tzemer pishtin patter all begadim. Siv dalit.
Most of the tzitzis that look like a t-shirt, it's cotton.
Ah. But they have some other material, I think like Yael is saying, some other material that that they wear some of these type of looks like a different type of material. Well, seemingly polyester.
Interesting.
Yesh, there's been updates on tzitzis in the last years. Yesh oimrim, important halacha. Yesh oimrim shein tzitzis shal tzemer apishtim poitrim bebegadim shashar minim, elum kin yu at tzitzis tzemer opishtim yachtov. Hainu beis chutin tcheles, obeis chutin pishtim. Tzemer opishtim yachtov, dilim tasalach. There is a shita. This is the Marami Rottenberg. This shita held that when do we say this din that Semer or Pishtim work for all begadim is only when they're together. That you have two strings of tchelas and two strings of pishtim. The tchelas is made out of wool. So you have Semer or Pishtim together. Then they could patter all materials. So this whole din, the Shita says, limits the scope of when Samuel Pishtim can patter other begadim. It's only when they're both together. That tzitzis are made out of four strings, which are turned and doubled over in half, so it's 8. So when they had the tchelas was made out of wool. 2 of them were tchelas, and 2 of them are made out of linen. And pishtim, and you have Samuel Pishtim yachtov, then it patters no matter what material the beged is made out of. V'af pi she'ein haminig kain, even though the minig is not so, shemitilan tzitzis tzamer v'tal shameshi, they had silk talesim, and they would put semer on the silk talis. And according to Menamid Otterberg, it's not going to help because since it's silk, it needs semer and pishtim together to patter the silk talis. Each one for itself is not going to help. Mikol mokim kol yiresh shemaim yachmer la'atzmoi, la'asis tzitzis shel meshi, v'talo shel meshi, v'chein kol b'shar kol aminim. The minig is not like the shita, but a yiresh shemayim should be machmer for himself. As the Magen Avraham points out, that if you're wearing a silk talis, make the tzitzis also silk. Just to be yoy to the shita of the Menamid Rottenberg, that semer, wool tzitzis are not going to help patter silk talis, which this shita applies today as well with cotton tzitzis, or polyester tzitzis, whatever material it might be. According to the Menamid Rottenberg, the wool tzitzis that you put on it are problematic. Put wool tzitzis on any of these begadim, you're not yoitza, because only when the semer pater other minim, other materials, when it's with pishtim together. So that's not the minig is not this way, but a Yerushalayim she machmer for himself. You don't have to tell other people what to do and not to do it, but for a person machmer for himself, to be careful that if you want to wear one of these other materials, a different material like silk, when it talks on Shulchan Aruch, make sure that tzitzis are also made out of silk. Further in the Sif, there's also a shita which held shakol baged she'eini mitzamer pishtim in ichayib. It's a kalam and atoyim devei soifrim. There's another shita which is not the ikar, but it's the Rambam and the Rif. They held any beged which is not made out of tzemer or pishtim, you're not yoitza. It's not chayiv b'chal. Even if it has 4 corners, a cotton beged or polyester beged that has 4 corners, according to the Ram and the Rif, there's no need to put tzitzis on it. And if you do put tzitzis on it, you're not yoitza the mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. So because of these 2 shitas that we have, the Merami Rottenberg and the Ram of the Rosh, we're holding Taf Mem Aleph in the ending of Sif Dalet. Someone who wants to do this mitzvah in the best manner possible, Yizar Shile Talis Gadol, Talis Gotten Shotzemer Lavan. You should wear wool Talis Gadol, a wool Talis cotton. V'yat and Tzitzis Shotzemer Lavan. You should put on it tzitzis of tzemer. ובזה מקיים mitzvahs tzitzis b'li shum pikbok. And in this manner, you're going to be Mekayim mitzvahs according to all shittas. Comes out by say that when other materials that people wear tzitzis in, min hadin is 100% kosher. However, there is an inyan, a mitzvah namufchar, to wear dafka wool, a wool beged, because when you're wearing wool on wool, you're yaitza all shittas. Yaitza Amir Rottenberg, who held that tzemer itself cannot pater cotton or polyester, other begadim, unless it's with pishtim together. And as well, there's the Rambam Darif, which held that the beged made out of cotton or polyester is not chayiv in tzitzis. It doesn't need tzitzis, because only tzemer and pishtim are the materials that the Torah said are chayiv in there on the four corners tzitzis. So that's why you have many people that try to be makbid to buy a wool, a talis, a wool tzitzis. Those that are mekel are relying on the ikar halacha and the minig that we don't follow these shittas and that we're mekel. Now we have in Sif Hey an interesting din. Halish hashesi shala shel tzemer ve'erev shel meshi. There is something called shesi and erev. Shesi and erev. Whenever you have a beged, the material in the beged, the strings go in two directions. One is going horizontal, and other strings are going vertical. And together you make it into a material, into clothing. So what happens if you have a talis, a material which the shesi is made out of semer, and the erev shameshi, meaning the shesi, if my recollection is correct, is what's going upwards, vertical, and the erev, the horizontal, are two different materials. What in such a case you cannot be yoitza all shittas. Ein takana l'talazu l'divrei ha'oimrim the tzitzis shel tzemer ein poit begadim shel shar minim. According to the shita of Rami Rottenberg, that the first shita in Dalid, that wool tzitzis do not pater other begadim, so the wool tzitzis of there will not be able to help for the silk which is in this beged. There's silk in there or other minim. And you can't make tzitzis out of another material, let's say out of silk. That would work for the silk which is in the beged. But it won't work for the wool in the beged. Because silk doesn't pater wool. Yideh Shemayim should not use such a beged that's made out of two different materials. Lamais is someone who does do this. I'm sorry. We spoke in Siftal that the minig is that we're not like the Merami Rottenberg. The minig of the oilam is they do wear, they'll wear a talis made out of silk or some other material, and they'll put on it wool tzitzis. So those that have that minig on this talis over here, that's made out of a mixture, where the chassis is semer and the eder is made out of a different material, according to that minig, to rely on that, we don't follow that shita of the Mamid Ottenberg, you can put on this talis also wool. Mikol mokim nochen hadavar sheyivarech al talis yesh bat hareves chuti meshi im sitzeseh hein shel tzemer. L'maisa, he says it's better not to make a bracha on it. Mikol shekenim kula shemeshi ha'minim achenim atzishin shel tzemer sheyivarech al talis acheres yisagam. It's better to make a bracha on another talis and to pater this talis. The avol im hatzitzis heim mimin hatalis. In shameshi the tal shameshi shakamas tal shakamas yachalav barachalav. However, if the tzitzis are silk and the beged is silk, they're both of the same material. In that case, you can make a bracha on it. We said earlier, there's a sheet of the Rama Rif that only tzemer and pishtim are chayavim in Torah. True, but midrabanan, other material also chayiv, and you're allowed to make a bracha on mitzvahs midrabanan also. So that when the Rama Rif said that you have to have tzemer and pishtim, it meant that min Torah you have to have tzemer and pishtim. Other material chayiv midrabanan. Lamaisa comes out according to the Alter Rebbe that a person should not make a bracha on any talis cotton that's not made, that the talis cotton or the talis is not the same material as the tzitzis. Meaning, if you're wearing wool tzitzis and the beged is cotton, it's nochin hadavar. It's better not to make a bracha on it. I would assume this is because of the chash, the union of a bracha, making sure that when you're saying a bracha, it's 100%. Sivav. I think just to jump to a halachas which are more practical. Let's jump to Sif Ches. B'chol hatoyre le'nikra tzemer stam al tzemer rechelim b'vad. In the entire Torah, whenever the Torah mentions tzemer, Torah many times mentions the beged called tzemer. It refers to tzemer, the wool of sheep. Aval shal izim from goats, nikra noitza. The Torah calls that with the word noitza. Now, v'shal gemalim shanavim, you have wool that comes from camels or from rabbits. Av mishehem nikraim tzemer, those are also termed tzemer. Mikol mokim ein nikra tzemer stam el b'shem levai tzemer gemalim tzemer navim. However, those are only called tzemer with an adjective to it. It would say clearly tzemer gemalim, tzemer navim. Whenever it says tzemer plain, it always means in the Torah tzemer rechelim of sheep. So therefore, when it comes to making tzitzis, the Torah uses the term tzemer. The tzitzis anasa mehem in important talis and kena talis in tzitzis kedin tzitzis anasa meshar minim. So this thing that we say that you could put wool tzitzis on any beged will not apply if it's not from a sheep, unless you're making a wool talis made out of rabbit wool, and the tzitzis are also rabbit wool. So they're both the same, it's okay. But if you're taking rabbit wool tzitzis and you're putting it on other begadim besides for rabbit wool, it's not going to patter. What?
He was just coughing.
Gabe tzitzis k'v Torah tzemer stam tzemer pishim yachtav din laslo. Because the Torah does not say clearly a different type of tzemer. If the Torah meant to say we could use a tzemer of different animals, it would have to be clear. If the Torah just said tzemer, we are assume that that means specifically tzemer of rechelim of sheep. Now, some learn siftas yesh oimrim kiven shalomdam lamadam at since you learn out from the Torah should the last tzitzis min hakanaf. The first sif we learned that tzitzis need to be the same material as the beged, as the corner, except when it's wool or pater or begadim. In kain so shia gamkin siva mimin seva hakanaf. Some understand that Rashi understood. This is from Rashi that the material, the color needs to be the same. Okay, matalas adumim. If you have a red talis, matin tzitzis adumim. You have to have red strings. Imi yerukam, tin tzitzis yerukim. V'yeshem others say shalikpida toil al mashus hatzitzis. Shimi min hamashatalis. No, the ikar is the material, not the color. Several like pida toil klaus shidaf min atzeva talis v'chein halacha. The halacha is that we are not concerned with the color. The color should match. That's not something we're concerned about. We're concerned that the material matches. And that is the minig in these countries. Last is tzitzis levanim. We make white tzitzis. Afilu bebegadim tzvuyim, even in colored begadim. And we shum she'amru chazal shenis'atev hakadosh baruch hu k'shliach tzibur. So, one thing is our minig is we always make. We're not noyig like this. We don't care about the colors. We can make white tzitzis even if the beged is colored. Lamaisa, we don't make colored begadim. Mishum she'amru chazal shenis'atev hakadosh baruch hu k'shliach tzibur. Since we say Chazal said that the Eibishter wrapped himself up like a shliach tzibur, and he showed Moshe Rabbeinu how to daven for Klal Yisrael. V'ksiv levushay kitlag chiver, and it says in Daniel that the Eibishter's levush is white wool. Therefore, we make the talis cotton and gadol white. So, Lamaisa, we do make everything white. The tzitzis white and the beged white, but that's considered roy l'chol medakdek b'maisav. That wasn't the minig. The minig was that you could put white tzitzis even on a colored beged. Person could make many different colors, whatever he wants his tzitzis to look like. You could dye different colors, the beged, and even though the tzitzis are not the same color, as long as the same material, it's fine. However, it's because the Eibishter, his levush is white, so it's right for every medaktik of mitzvahs to make his talis cotton and gadol also white. And in order to be yaitze, even that opinion that holds it should be the same color, we make our tzitzis also white. Now, Lamaisa, we have white, but we also have these black strips on the tzitzis. These are not mentioned in halacha. We don't find in discussion halacha the fact that there are these black stripes that we have on the talis gadol. So this is a minhag that is done in order to remember the tchelas. Tchelas is a dark color, so to have some type of memory for the tchelas, became these stripes that we have? I didn't do research as exactly when this started in history, but it's not mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, these stripes that we make in the talus. So they're definitely not ma'akiv.
Samarov had blue stripes.
What?
Samarov had blue stripes.
Anyone knows why? Oh, Misadis.
Yeah, but it's not Masama. I don't know.
That tchelas.
Yeah,
It should be more bedoimet to tchelas. What? But Satmar Chassidim today are not knowing that way, right?
it's Yiddish, so they stopped doing it.
Ah.
I don't remember where, but I heard the pshat. The reason we have a black line on the tzitzis to
Uh-huh.
remind us the Eberster are vitos and overwrap us, even though you have in a dark time. Not always is white. Sometimes you have dark time in life. The Eberster is still, wrap you off. That's why you in the talents you have black lines.
The geschmack word. The shaila is if it sounds more like from a magid, from a darshan. I'm not sure if that was the minig kipshutei. There's always drush and pshat, but
Because by Chabad, there's the old Talisim, the lines was wider, and lately they changed it to skinnier. If you look picture from Chabad many years ago, the lines is not exactly the same like we have now.
uh,
So something changed.
maybe this is something to do with the talismachers changed it. I mean,
I think Rabbi Rose told us that he used to tell us. He went to
the
the
what?
Rebbe to show the side, etc. He's Zayde. He used to make teles,
Uh,
and he went to
right.
Yiddish to the Rebbe to show him. And the Rebbe told him exactly, which black line to have, and the width and length, etc.
Rabbi Merazov discussed this once in a shir.
And the size of the holes in the bottom.
You heard
Yeah,
you heard
I
this from
remember.
Rabbi Merazov. Ah, very interesting.
I
Okay,
remember. I don't know exactly what mocker that I could refresh it with him next time when I speak to him.
right. Yes, that would be a good idea to find out.
Lately, I saw a talit from Chabad from Israel that says that it's exactly the size of the Rebbe wanted, according to certain shitas, and with the holes gonna be the size of the hole in the bottom and from the corner, etc.
Hmm.
But I don't remember to see the moko where is the says that it should be black line and how many and what the size, etc.
Hmm.
The Sfardim, though, put it on white lines. They put white lines on the tzitzis.
Taka interesting. Taka interesting to see what's the mucker for this whole
The
uh
white, we know the mocha because the pasuk says get like chiver. It should be like a shelag. Okay, so we know shelag is white, the Eberster
yeah,
wearing
it was
white.
the
Makes
whole
sense,
thing.
right? But with the black line come and how many black line and how many part of it says. You see the black line that we have in of Chabad tzitzis is not the whole talis. It's just the bottom part. The main part
Mhm.
is white.
Mhm. Right, interesting. Okay, we have to ma'ayin in this whole ingin. It's definitely not ma'akiv. Any talis you find to wear, you don't have to be makbid. Like if you're somewhere and you're given a talis, it doesn't have the stripes the way you're noyig. It's not ma'akiv. Um. Okay, Simin Yud. Dine kamfes hatalis uboy chof gimel sifim. Talis she'ein lo dala kamfes paturis. It has to have four corners. Shema ka'arba kamfes ksuscha. Yesh lo yoiser midala kamfes chayeves shenemar shetachasaba. V'haikra yiseruhu el rabis balas heikamfis oyoysa shachiyevas. There's an extra words in the pasuk asher techasaba, the beggar that you cover yourself with. And Chazal learn out that it comes to include if you had more than four corners, it's also chayiv and tzitzis. So the Chazal say, "Mari isa l'rabbeis balas hey u'lamayit balas gimel." How do we know the pasuk asher techasaba is coming to include a five-cornered beged and to exclude three? Maybe when it comes to be marbe, it's including even a three-cornered beged. Marba ni balas hey. The reason why we come to include that also five or six corner beged is chayim sheyesh bechlal hey dalit. Then the Torah says clearly you have to have four corners. When the Torah says shetachasva, we're coming to add, it can't come to add three. We know the Torah says four. It comes to add more than four when you have five because you in five you have four. Someone has five, it's not pshat that they don't have a four corners. They have four corners. You also have a fifth corner. Since the whole chiv of a beged of five is because it has four, you only need to put on four of those corners tzitzis. You don't have to put on the fifth one. It's chayev, and you only put on four. And if you add five corners onto the fifth corner tzitzis, you're over on the Isser Baal Toisif, you're added to a mitzvah Torah. Torah says you're only supposed to put on four corners. Which one should you put it on? You have five, six corners. Which four corners should you choose to put it on? Siv Gimel, Shumatel Baal Hey Yoiser, Yatel Bedal Kampes Hamurchoki Zumizu Yoiser. Shushanem Al Dal Kampes Murchokis Yoiser Mizu Mizu in Yoiser Nekom Shen Kampes. Should take the most further four corners from each other. Because that looks like corners, not ones in the middle. The most furthest away, that is what looks like clearly as corners. Siv Dalid, Talis Shahoya Law Dalid Kamfes. A talis which had, like usual, four corners. V'chata keren echabalach. So you cut one corner diagonally. But a soul base kamfes. Now you have another corner because you made one corner into two. So now you've created a fifth corner. It became now five corner beged. It remains chayiv because now five corner beged is chayiv. So if you went and did two corners, and the same thing, you cut each one in diagonally. Now you have six corner beged. You're still chayiv in tzitzis. Sif hey, afa pisha halacha, shabalas hey kampes yoysa chayev. So bizarre chil shelo yasa beged, shum beged yoysa medala kampes. Shei cholkim peisim etzitzis. Because there is a shita in Chazal that learns differently and holds that five corner beged is potter from tzitzis. So it's best to lechatchila to be zar not to make more than four. But for some reason, let's say someone's beged ripped, your corner ripped, and it got torn, and now it has like another corner to one of the begadim because it tore diagonally on the corner. That beged remains kosher. Just l'chatchila, when we make a beged, l'chatchila not to make it balas hey kamfes to be yoytz to that shita, which is not the ikr, but l'chatchila when you're making it, that's to be making lefi kol hashitas. So therefore, don't make it balas hey kamfes. But if for some reason it came that way, something happened, it's still chayiv in tzitzis, and you can continue wearing it. Sivav mi sheikbia kamfis talisai. Someone who lifted up the corners, folded over the corners of his talis. The tafar hakfolim, and he sewed it up. He sewed up the corners. At shegnire kilo kamfis mukutsois beagle. Now it looks like it's like round. He folded over the corner in a manner that the fold was round, and he sewed it that way. Sham kanaf. There's no corner anymore. Af became lenifta mitzitzis. It doesn't mean now it's potter from tzitzis. The chokama shechotel megamin atalis. Miklad adayin tzarech al mesay from lachs tchlos of adayin of shavim miklad atalis or eisha dal kampis chayv hat tzitzis al mokim kanaf arishin. Av bishuach shatof lebein she say for last such a case, a yois that you did not cut it off the beged, and it's still there on the beged. Means that you haven't planned to maybe one day to undo the stitches and to make it back to being square. Since that's the case, it's still considered a four-corner beged, and you have to have tzitzis on the corner, but not on the round part. You have to have tzitzis on the corner part, which is sewn up. Because even though now it's sewed up, but since you plan on one day possibly opening up the stitches, so that's where you have to put the tzitzis. What happens? You folded it up on the corner, but it wasn't folded in a round way. It was still square. You folded it over and you didn't like it. It was long. You folded it over and sewed it up, but it still has a corner to it. Still has a corner. Then you can put a baguette. You could tie tzitzis on that corner because it's like a corner. Siv zayim abushav sha'or pturim and tzitzis. Shema kamfe b'deim le'nekaim beged el shenedag. Someone wears leather. Leather begadim are potter from tzitzis. Why? It says beged. The Torah calls al kamfe b'gdeihem. A beged is in the Torah. A beged means it's a cloth, a material that you have woven together. The shesi and the ediv. I don't know in English how you say those terms, but a piece of leather is one piece. It comes off the animal. It's in one big piece. And that's not called a beged. And even if they are somehow attaching a few pieces together, since leather is not woven, it's not the way what leather is made, it's not considered a beged. So even if your leather jacket has four corners to it, you're potter in tzitzis. Now what happens if you have a mixture in sifches? Most of the talis was leather, and a little bit was made out of material, regular material. Even if the corners are also made out of regular cloth material, it's potter. Since roiv of the beged, the chiv is on the beged. Roiv of this beged roiv of this talis is leather, it's potter. Alom roi ruba min beged and yuta min ha'oyer. If the contrary, most of the beged was the talis was made out of regular cloth material, and only a small part of it was made out of leather. And even if the corners were also made out of leather, the tzitzis are not touching the cloth is touching the leather. It's still chayim and tzitzis because everything goes after the ikr of the beged. The ikr beged is what is not the corners. It's even though the chiv is to put it on the corners, but the chiv is on the whole beged that you cover yourself with. So someone wants to be fancy and make the corners out of leather, and we mentioned such an idea earlier. It's not an issue to make the corner out of leather, even though leather is a material which is potter legamri from tzitzis. because the corner is not the ikar of the beged. Im atalas shel oir ubeged tafer tachtel petura. If the talus was made out of leather, but you had underneath it a lining of beged, underneath it it's putter because the ikar is the actual talus is made out of leather. And he shall beged, but if the talus is made out of beged, out of material, and it had a leather lining, chayeves. Shatacht and tafel ikra beged. The ikra beged is the outside of the beged, not the lining, the inside lining. So since the outside is material and the inside is leather, it's chayev and tzitzis. Okay, from Sif Yud and on is going to start a new dinim, and so Mitzvah Shem we're going to leave this for another week. Is the Olam is in shul? Is a minyan?
5.
Huh?
You're 5.
5
There's
people.
3 or 4 others. But
If everyone on the Zoom was there, we would have a minyan, 5 and 5.
Shkoyach, thank you.
Yeah. Call to Rabbi Semer to Shem. We'll be in person the coming week.
Yes, Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem.
Good enough,
Call
thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
we're not so welcome. Thank you. Good night, Robert Davis. Good night.
There's also that's the drive for Crown Heights will be criminal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Good night, Robert Davis.
Nobody drives more than they have to. Yeah.